Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross and I was always told I had a voice radio, so today I am in a fairly good mood because I get to talk about Chandelure. Now, Chandelure is one of my favourite Pokemon on the Pokémon Tournament fighting game. I love the design, and he's got another really interesting card. Now, we've had interesting Chandelure in the past that haven't seen a huge amount of play, although this one with this Excelgor and this Vileplume was a pretty good deck for a while. Had a good showing at Worlds in 2012. But let's have a look at the new Chandelure, see if he's any good. Now, first things first, he is a fire Pokemon, which is really, really nice because he is hitting for weakness against things like Decidueye, which is big right now. But of course, being a stage 2 fire Pokemon is very awkward because it means you've got to rely on rare candy, evolving up in a traditional route, little bit slow, little bit awkward. And to be honest, I said about how Chandelure hits Decidueye for weakness and that's good, but Decidueye is generally played with Vileplume, and you're reliant on rare candy, so in the same way, Incineroar's not a good tech against Vileplume Decidueye, because he's just being locked out of rare candy. Same thing with Chandelure, it might be good against your regular Decidueye deck, but it's not going to be amazing against Decidueye Vileplume. Sorry about that. Weakness to water is awkward with Lapras and Aqua Patch really being hyped at the moment, and just water decks in general being on the rise. Could be awkward. And Retreat of 1 is handy because you're attacking for 1 energy. It's always nice when you can attack for 1 energy and then retreat for that same energy without having to waste an energy, use your Float Stone, etc. Now, before we look at the attacks, I do want to give a quick shout out to the Litwick here. It's got a nice attack for 1 fire energy, 10 damage, automatic sleep. So if you are struggling to set up, if you are having a bit of a slow start, you can just put your opponent to sleep and hope it buys you the turn or two that you need. Now, fire decks do have Volcanion as a good starter. They've got the new Oricorio coming out. Link to that one in the description. So, I don't know necessarily that you need Litwick as a starter, but if you start Litwick and can't get him out the active, it's a really nice attack. But really here, it's all about Chandelure. Now, in terms of the attack, it's pretty good. 1 fire energy, 50 damage, automatic burn. So, burn is where they take 20 damage between turns, then you flip a coin. If heads, you're no longer burned. So you're doing a minimum of 70 damage here, and it could keep going up. I like this a lot, but I just worry that it's a little underpowered. 50 damage is fine, plus you get the burn as well, but, I mean, you're 2-hit KOing non-EXs. You're 2-hit KOing things like Decidueye, because you do 100 plus 20 for burn, followed by 100 plus 20 for burn, which will be 240. But against regular EXs and GXs, you're kind of 3-hit KOing even with burn. I worry that you're just not doing enough damage here. But it does have a very interesting ability. What it allows you to do is once during your turn, you can move 1 damage counter from either player's Pokemon to another Pokemon, yours or your opponent, i.e. you take 1 damage counter from anywhere on the field and move it somewhere else on the field. So, oh, and this stacks, by the way, so if you've got 4 Chandelure in play, you can do this 4 times. And there are 4 things that you can do with this. Let me try and explain them as simply as I can. Number 1, you can move damage counters off of your Pokemon so that your opponent hasn't got enough damage to KO. Number 2, you can move damage onto your opponent's Pokemon to get a mid-range KO. They've got 10 HP remaining, you move a damage counter over, take a KO, take some prize cards in the middle of the game. Number 3, you can put damage counters onto one of your Pokemon to boost your attacks. Think this Magikarp or this Reshiram that got reprinted like 17 times, because sometimes you do more damage based on how much damage is on your Pokemon, so sometimes you want to damage your Pokemon. And finally, you can heal your opponent. Why would you want to heal your opponent? Poison, I think, is the best example of this. Your opponent has got 10 HP remaining at the end of your turn. It goes to their turn. In between turns, the Pokemon is KO'd by poison. Your opponent puts up a new Pokemon and gets to attack. But let's say they've got something like a Hooper EX stuck in the active and they can't retreat it. Now, you don't want that Pokemon being KO'd by poison, so you move 1 damage counter off the Hooper. And then they take 10 damage between turns, but they aren't KO'd. And then after their turn, where they can't attack because Hooper's stuck in the active, Hooper is KO'd by poison, going into your turn, so your opponent has to put up a new Pokemon. And now, because you use Chandelure to heal 10 from Hooper, it didn't get KO'd from poison going into your opponent's turn, so they get the first hit. It got KO'd by poison coming into your turn, so you get the first hit on the new Pokemon. That is nice. So you could heal yours or your opponent's and it work, or you could damage yours or your opponent's and it could work. The thing is, it's 1 damage counter. And there will be turns when this is absolutely crucial. But it's a stage 2 Pokemon where you're relying on rare candy, and it's 1 damage counter. We have seen that where we've got stage 2s that you can cheat the evolution. Decidueye with Forest of Giant Plants, Blastoise with Archie's Ace in the Hole. They do see play. But other than that, stage 2s have to be really, really good in order to warrant seeing play. And to be perfectly honest, ladies and gentlemen, as much as I love this ability, and I do, and I love Chandelure, and I do, I just think that the attack is a little underpowered, and I think the ability, although interesting and will win you some games, doesn't really justify having a stage 2 Pokemon with all of that. I am sorry, I'm going to have to give Chandelure between 2 and 3 Wassies, and honestly that might be a little bit generous. This might be a 2 Wassie card. Now you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen, there is a comment section. Go nuts, be nice. There are buttons to both like this video and subscribe to this channel. I would be overjoyed if you would go ahead and use those both, unless you've already subscribed, in which case don't click the button again, because then you unsubscribe and I become a sad panda. You can follow me on Twitter @TheWassie, and the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.